Do you think that the free market is the best place, the best locus to cultivate those hierarchically ordered friendships?
Yes. Next question. No, I'm kidding.
What makes it the optimal place for human flourishing? What makes the free market the optimal place?
Sure. Well, I wouldn't say the free market is the optimal place, but for certain ends, it would be the optimal place for human flourishing.
Okay.
I believe we have ends which are entailed by our rationality. Being a Catholic, I believe we actually need friendship with God. So that's this whole other order. But we're kind of talking about friendship with neighbor.
Sure.
And amongst friendship of neighbor, well, then it is a very important piece. Let me give you an example of how we've all experienced friendship in the markets. Right?
Go for it.
Um, what's the most exciting thing that you've purchased recently?
Oh boy.
It doesn't have to be terribly exciting. It could be.
No, well, actually, so I just paid my sister to paint this wonderful image for the show for us, and so that was quite a pretty penny, and it was pretty exciting to buy.
And did you say thank you at the end of the transaction?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Of course. Did she, when you gave her money?
She was not only for the money, but for the project. She found it enjoyable to work together on something.
Fascinating. I suggest that the reason why we commonly, if not always, say thank you at the end of a voluntary free market transaction is because we're thankful to the other. It's a very simple theory, which is highly predictive. But isn't that a fascinating thing that we need to stop and think about? I say thank you to somebody that I just paid money to. Why? Now, if I had it by right, would I say thank you? There was a property dispute at one house I was making, and there was a question about where the boundary line was. Now, once it's determined, does the one person say, "Hey, thank you"? No, you don't say hey, thank you. You say you were on my side of the line, and now you're on your side of the line. This was mine all along, right? You don't say thank you when you have a right to something, and that's it, and that's it. And you demand something from that person, and it's just yours, and that's it. No, it's something else going on. And economically speaking, when we engage in these voluntary transactions, the only time where we do so without like fraud or something is when I believe it'll benefit you, you believe it'll benefit me. And there's two things which go on here. One, if we're going to draw the little graph back here, we have our supply and we have our demand and we have that little triangle, and then the line goes across the triangle, we have profit. And then the least talked about thing ever, consumer surplus. So you can almost think about this as like profit for the other side. So if I sell you a gigantic bag of marshmallows and I make $2 in profit, I go, hey, thank you. What am I thanking you for? Just the fact that your what is $2 matches my marshmallows? No, I'm thanking you for the part that doesn't. I'm thanking you, in a sense, for the amount that goes over and above. I'm thanking you for the profit, and that's why I'm excited about the transaction. Why do you thank me? Well, he didn't tell me this, but he really likes marshmallows, and he would have paid $4 for that $2 bag of marshmallows. So he has the secret reserve price. I would have paid $4 for those marshmallows. I love marshmallows. And I say, dude, I'll give them to you for $2. And now you have $2 in consumer surplus. So what do you say thank you about? You say thank you about that. Because if you begrudgingly go, man, this is just barely it. Like, $2 marshmallows, not much. Take your money. You say thank you because you gained $2. So that's why I think markets are unique, right? When we say, hey, we're going to make a voucher system, a stamp system, and you can stand in the line and you can get your bread at the end of the line. You say, I have a stamp. This is my claim. Give this to me. It is my property. The government has decreed that the boundary line goes me and my bread, you with no bread anymore. Here's your stamp, and now that's on your side of the boundary line, and let's frown about it. So I don't know if that's an answer to your question, but that's an answer.
It's very helpful and very evocative. I like what you're saying about this is a theme that an economist friend of mine, Dr. Scott, has repeatedly made to me, that a free exchange is one in which both parties benefit. And it makes me think of one of my favorite places, one of my favorite markets on the earth, which is a coffee shop, When I go to a coffee shop, the coffee and the donuts and the pastries are way too expensive. More than I, in any sane part of my brain, would ever pay for coffee or pastries. But I'm not just paying for the coffee and pastries. I'm paying for the beautiful environment, for like all the work that goes into keeping the lights on, that goes into putting the arts on the wall, that like cleaning the floors and just creating an atmosphere in which I can read and think and encounter people. I've made so many friends just by frequenting coffee shops over and over again. You discover who the regulars are. And so I always know there are friends of mine who will go to a coffee shop and secretly like sort of sit there and not buy anything. And I always say, no, I think you're doing an injustice. You ought to pay those extra large prices so that you can keep the lights on at this place that is blessing you so much.
Yeah, and engaging in those kind of interactions, I think, kind of getting back to what we were talking about earlier, what is a mode of human flourishing? I think we're actually made to work, and if we don't work, we get sad. And what that says is, well, if we're made to work, it's not just made to work and consume ourselves, because we already discussed how when we create a good thing, it's actually better with the enjoyment of others. So we're actually made to work, made to make good things, and made to make other people happy with those good things, because that makes us even happier. So having a market allows us to be able to optimally work and then optimally send these things out to the people who say, I'm putting my hand up first because I like this coffee shop the most. The people who like it the most are the people who are going to come the most often, are going to become the regulars. And that means this is the exact group that has assembled to share in the goodness of your labor as somebody who makes coffee. That is wonderful. We like this.
It is.
This is something worth preserving. Now, I'm more than happy about talking about how things can go wrong here and how the consumer surplus, producer surplus split can be warped through different types of taxes or through monopolization of either the group of buyers or the groups of sellers.
Oh, interesting.
Sure. And these are real issues that deserve real attention, but we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. I have a baby. I know this for a fact now. And
that bathwater can get pretty dirty.
The bathwater can. Indeed it can. Sometimes you have to change it a few times. But this is something we need to preserve. These good parts that target friendship, that target flourishing, which actually set the precondition for our exercise of a variety of virtues. All of this is good. Now let's take that revolutionary, courageous attitude whereby we could incur a loss to make society better. And that type of bravery and courage, when paired with a selflessness, is wonderfully constructive. Bravery and courage, which is paired with a selfishness, is unbelievably dangerous. And not only is it dangerous
sorry to interrupt, but this is something that you and I both appreciate, the work of the popes of the Catholic Church over the last 200 years, who have been making subtle but significant critiques of the societies that we live in and of the revolutionary spirit. The one of the fundamental themes I've seen in those works is that even when we have to bring about significant changes in a system, we ought to presume friendship between the rulers and the ruled, between the rich and the poor. We can't treat them as if they're natural enemies.
100 and bazillion percent. There's there's a section in Proverbs and another one in James, which both say the same thing about envy. And I think it's really illuminating. One, it says that it's a rottenness of the bones. I think that's interesting. The other one I think is more interesting. In James, it says it is a bone cancer. So why is it that it's saying envy is this bone cancer? Well, in one case, it actually damages you. So we can imagine this body as an individual. When you are struck with envy, this makes you brittle in your life. So if you are consumed with, oh no, other people are enjoying good things and this causes me actual distress, then your life will be brittle and fragile. Your mental
Mm.
health will be brittle and it will be fragile. I can guarantee you this is a mode of living an effective life, 100%, but it extends to the body politic and in those two ways. When you have envy come into a society, it actually undermines the foundation of society. And interestingly, the book of James kind of clarifies in a bone cancer like way. Bone cancer
Mm.
targets the marrow, and the marrow is what produces blood. And what does blood do? It is that which is responsible for the active transport of resources. So I love this. I don't know if he intended this, but I think that is a very apt description of what envy does. When we get envy in society, what ends
Yeah.
up is that the society itself can crumble because it's targeting, destroying, and perverting the processes by which
Mm.
we actively transport resources through the body politic.
Wow.
So
Wow.
when we undo that, we have a health. I'm talking about in my revolutionary world, if you will, let's dispense with envy. Let's embrace
Mm.
friendship. And then as friends, let's look at issues together so that you can
Mm.
benefit, I can benefit, society can benefit, and let's use our courage not just to attack one another or to turn inward in self-destruction, but instead let's actually use it to solve real problems. Wouldn't that be great?
Fascinating.